Welcome back to the biz, everybody. I am joined this week by a wonderful human being, Shannon, from the band Ramona, a band that also has my little brother in it. And welcome to the show, Shannon.
How are you?
I'm doing okay, considering, I would say.
I would say
Yourself?
the same, getting by.
But it's funny because it's like, well, what are we working towards? Because there's no touring right now. There is no local shows. I mean, live streams are decent at best.
Some good ones.
But
But
like, did you see any live stream that made you go, like, where you felt a huge connection to it?
I mean, as much as you can while you're using the bathroom, like while looking at Instagram.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I feel the same way. It seemed like Ramona was right when Deals came out on like Red Scare. You guys started like doing a bunch of shows and doing a bunch of touring, and I think that when we're in this punk rock bubble of a world that we grew up listening to, and I think that people in punk rock seem to be a bit, it's the perception is that we're a bit more open-minded to things.
Yeah.
I know that there were some tours that you guys did where you told me that you felt uncomfortable at places where you didn't think that you would feel uncomfortable.
I guess the last one I can remember that really kind of was like, wow, this is weird. Definitely, I feel like this is Baltimore. We were playing with Teenage Bottle Rocket. Like, the show ended, it was all good vibes, it was a great show, really nice and green rooms. We were playing Mario Kart. It was like,
Everything's going awesome.
yeah, it's just like, one of those shows where it's like, oh, it just went so perfectly, and like,
Right.
They're at their merch table or something. Me and Diego were like shooting the shit, Someone comes up and buys one of our vinyls, and they're like, oh, like, this is great. You want to like give it, like, sign it or like do all this stuff. I'm like, this signing LPs is something that like I never did before that tour specifically.
Sure. Right. Right.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
While I'm signing it, this older white person, just reaches up and just like gives me the hardest hair ruffle, like, just so uncomfortable, And I know Diego, I can just see Diego like sucking his teeth and like just so uncomfortable. It's really cringe, when people do that.
And it's hard too because you're standing in front of somebody who liked your band and they're buying the record, and obviously they don't think what they're doing is wrong. But for me, that's just so surprising because I don't think if I was like out with my best friend to think, you know what, maybe I'll just grab his hair a little bit. Maybe to me, I'm just like, why would I do that? So why would a stranger grab a black person's hair is just so wild to me.
I think like I've had this conversation with a lot of other people of color, and this is a very common thing.
Right. I've heard this several times too.
If you're white and watching this, black people don't like that. But I think it goes deeper than that. Like, people don't really like that. Nobody likes that,
Yeah.
It's like, why is it okay to touch hair of my consistency?
Like, it would be better, if one of your white friends was like, hey, is it cool if I like feel your hair? Like, I've never felt a black person's hair before, and I'm just like really curious. Like, is that cool?
That's still weird, but that's better.
Still weird, still super weird. But like, I could see it like being like, well, I just want to know what it feels like, and if like that's not cool, that I can't do, like, that's fine. It opens up the door where you can say yes or no. Like.
Yeah. But I mean, it's happened to me while working, while bartending, while walking down the street. It's just weird that it happened to me after a set, like.
Right. Totally. Absolutely. And like, I mean, the person is buying your stuff. They liked your band. Do you then look at that person and tell them to fuck off? And it's like, that's You know, that's uncomfortable. Like,
Yeah, and it's like I think it's kind of clear like what we stand for as a band, you know? Like even in
right,
our like album art, it's like we're used to being tokenized, you know?
right, right.
It just feels weird to like be in that position even after like singing about it so loudly on stage, you know?
Right. And your album cover, you know, which features all your background stereotypes.
Yeah.
It's almost like you think that, like, did someone look at this and not think that we were joking?
It's possible,
You know, it's possible. And
it's
it's,
like I I think it's very, very likely like that people don't see it. I think people of color see it. I think people of color see that and like, oh yeah, this is like blatant stereotyping. You know,
right, right.
the white people just see it as like, oh, this is funny. You know,
And that's the thing is that, like, I think at a show, it, you know, among what you would consider your peers who listen to the same music as you, who you think have the same beliefs as you. I mean, there's a reason why, you know, I mean, at least when I grew up in the 90s, we had, you know, the ska craze was huge, but like it was Asian Man Records doing the Plea for Peace tour and like, you know, ARA, like against racism tables. And this was everywhere and it was very prevalent, which gave me the impression that in punk rock, that's, you know, we stand for a lot of people's ideals. And I still believe that that is true. But it is surprising to me, you know, on the street, I'm not surprised when someone acts racist towards me.
yeah,
And it's not shocking because, you know, as a person of color, I've grown up with these things for
especially Massachusetts.
yeah, exactly. You know, for
Yeah.
as early as I can remember, you know, I had shit happen to me or just like judgment. And I think the place where I felt that judgment wasn't there was at punk rock shows, which is what made me want to play music in the first place. I felt like it was like, I don't really have to think about this. So I think when you're put in one of those situations where at a show, at the place where you feel safe, you now have to think about it. And it's so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like I feel like that didn't really start happening to me until I really started going to shows more, like when I was a teenager.
Right.
In the aughts, I guess. The aughts. But, you know, people stereotype, you know, people think you're in the wrong place, like, especially if you're not, like, privy to, like, the bands that you should know, you know, especially when you're just starting out in a time before music was as accessible, you know?
Absolutely.
And I think that's, you have to try like twice as hard to like feel accepted in those kind of spaces. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's maybe something that, and I think it can be geographical too. Because I remember the first time I went to New Mexico, to a punk show in New Mexico, there was Hispanic punks everywhere. And I was like, this is wild to me. I've never seen this in Boston, you know? And I saw it and I was like, that's so cool. That's so great, you know? Maybe in a place like DC, there was more punk bands with black people in them.
Yeah.
You know, because Discord, I remember like having the Discord book and all those bands and looking through it and just seeing not just white people in the scene, you know?
Yeah.
So I, you know, and I think that probably in a place like, I don't know, but 80s Discord, probably those shows were a little bit more socially conscious of people of color than growing up somewhere where you go to shows and the whole audience is white, you know?
I feel like I was really into like, especially in those days, like the Casualties Unseen crowd, which is notoriously kind of, you know, not nice, you know?
But that's the thing is that, like, you know, like you say the Unseen, but I mean, I remember the Unseen had songs that were like race war, you know, and things like that. And like, you know, singing about like fascists and like, you know, all those things. And that's what made you feel safe. It was like, all right, there, you know, that might be a band of all white guys, but they're singing for everyone, you know?
You're singing for everyone. I just think it's like kind of when you're a band and you're popular, like your message can kind of not be heard by your fans. Like a good example is like the whole Rage Against the Machine thing that's happening.
Oh yeah.
People didn't understand that there was a political message, even though they've done things from like come on to stage dressed like, prisoners,
right,
war. Like,
I mean,
flags.
It's hard to know if a band's political or not when they're singing Renegades of Funk, though, right?
Exactly.
But I mean, even on a smaller level, like I looked in at Pennywise recently, because like there's bands like that, like 90s punk rock bands that like I listened to when I used to like skateboarding around, like who didn't listen to Pennywise that skateboarded, and noticing that bands like that haven't said anything about Black Lives Matter, haven't really like in a time where like you can stand up to your for your audience, and I'm like, wait, do they think that black people don't listen to their band? And I'm like, wait, but I used to like this band, I used to listen to this band a lot, like am I not included in Bro Hymn? Because I thought I was included in Bro Hymn. I thought I was part of the Whoa. And like, maybe I'm not part of the Whoa.
You're one of the 1,000 voices in Bro Hymn.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's just like, we're like, even though we're kind of like in it, you and me, we both are in the scene, we play music, but it still feels like it's, we're still a minority there,
Yeah, I mean, we're a minority there, but I think we build our own platform, and I think it's nice that we have that,
A big part of me, like, even starting music is because, like, there was no representation for me. Well, I'm like, I'm just going to do it,
Exactly. And, I mean, I've done that and not even just a race thing, but, like, for me, it's like, that's always been my attitude. It's like, well, if we don't have a booking agent, we'll be our own agent. If we don't have a record label, we'll make our own. And that's always been the thing. And I think that that's important for your representation too. Like, I never socially like thought like, well, there's no Hispanics playing punk rock, so I will. But I think about, I was like, well, since there isn't a lot of Hispanics playing, then maybe me playing is a bit more important that I keep playing.
Yeah. I think it's really good to have that representation because when I was growing up, there was like definitely a lot of good POC bands, but like they wouldn't always have the same light as like light shined on them as a lot of these like white boy punks,
right. Like everyone always goes back to like even me, I always go back to Bad Brains and Fishbone. And there's reasons for it. I think both bands are phenomenal. I think what they did was so important. I think, you can credit Bad Brains with like starting punk rock, but there should have been 1,000 more Bad Brains.
They were out there,
yeah, exactly.
You have to be the best of the best to like be recognized.
To stand out, right. And it's like I wish I had like 100 other bands, thousands of other bands I could reference that everybody knows, and it sucks that it's not, because there's been so much time, it's upsetting, but I think this is also, I think, what keeps the fire beneath you to keep going.
I think of like Dead Kennedys a lot, like their drummer is black. They literally had to tell Nazis to fuck off because they like that. They like that music,
Yeah, totally. And not
even realizing that they're engaging in like cultural exchange because there's people of color in that band,
It's so important to not let people ruin something like that for you.
Yeah.
And because a band like Dead Kennedys was playing fast, aggressive music, and if they see, they're like, well, white power people like this, or Nazi people like it, like, like the reason you can, like, there's people that don't know any Dead Kennedys, but they know Nazi punks fuck off because it's so important, I remember when Proud Boys started wearing the Fred Perry with the gold emblem, that was like, the Proud Boys uniform. And I saw Fishbone shortly after that, and Chris Dowd was wearing the same shirt, and he was like, "Fuck that, dude." He's like, "If they're gonna wear them, as a black man, I'm gonna wear this and see how they like it." And that pissed them off,
Yeah, I mean, I love that. Like, you have to persevere. Like, there's a lot of hate out there. Like in Philly right now, we're surrounded by. We're in South Philly. There's a bunch of 7-year-old Italians with bats running around. Like,
right. I mean, let's talk about that for a second. Like,
that's a good segue.
It's so easy to just not be racist, right?
Think.
You would think, and I remember the first time I went to Philly, someone was like, "You got to get a cheesesteak." And I was like, "All right, let's fuck up a cheesesteak." And, we went to Pat's, and people are always like, "Well, there's Geno's and then there's Pat's." And they're like, "Which one is better?" And we went to Pat's, but I did look at Geno's because I was like, well, maybe Geno's is better. I don't know. And I realized that there is one key ingredient that Geno's has that Pat's doesn't have. And it's a good score to racism right in your sandwich.
Yeah, they just they you have to order in English there, I think. Like, They won't serve you if you order. Let's just cut down Geno's right now. They have like police memorabilia in their windows.
It's so crazy. Like, you are a cheesesteak place.
Yeah. When people started looting, there was like gunners on top of Geno's, like like Fallout Cheesesteak Vegas,
It's so crazy to me. And it's like, I remember seeing the signs that said like, only order in English. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, what if you don't speak English, but you can say cheesesteak? Like, that seems like a pretty easy, like, you don't even have to know what else the person's saying. Like, if they're like, cheesesteak or cheesesteak, like,
yeah.
All right, like, take the money and go. Like, why do you have to be racist when it comes to cheesesteaks?
I could tell you. I
mean, and it's one of those things where, not everyone is like that. I understand that. And, like, if you say the argument where, like, not all cops are bad. Do I believe that there's good cops out there? Yeah, sure. I mean, they're rare, but let's say for argument's sake that there are some good cops out there. If I watch a cop go and eat at Geno's, why would I trust that guy?
Yeah, that cop has, like, where that guy's at,
Right. Like, you can say all day that, you can be like, well, not all cops are racist. It's like, well, in a place like Philly, where you have a place that supports the cops, and if they're fine going there, then, like, that dude does not have my best interest at all.
No,
I don't know.
It's just like people who've lived in this neighborhood for 50 plus years who can't take change,
Right. And, like you said, there's like murals to like cops and stuff there, like,
Ooh, that just got painted over.
Huh?
That got painted over. There's a big Frank Rizzo. There was a big Frank Rizzo mural in the Italian market. They just painted over it.
That's awesome.
They might put like gritty there, I think. I'm not sure.
That would be so sick.
I would love a big, like, in a suit still, but it's like Gritty's head,
That is so fucking funny.
The statue's gone. His statue's gone too. They took
that and that's the thing, is that, like, I'm all for getting rid of this shit that, like, we memorialized people who were not great people. And the thing is, they were great to someone, but they weren't great for everyone.
Frank Rizzo was a mayor and the police chief of, Philadelphia. He literally dropped a bomb on a whole neighborhood, like the Move building.
Right.
Like, I think it was in West Philly.
Yeah.
And, like, killed so many people of color. Like, that whole block was just burned down because he literally dropped a combat explosive on his house.
Right. And it's like, then if someone's like, well, I think he was a great person. Like, why would you put over it? It's like, well, he's not great to everyone. Like, that is so awful what he did. And,
Yeah. Like that statue has a lot of painful memories for a lot of people, you know?
right, right. I mean, that wasn't that long ago. There's people that still live in Philly that remember that happening.
30 years ago, I think.
Yeah. You
But
know,
it's
like,
like, why is it that like we have to argue that it's like this person is bad, you know?
shouldn't even have to argue it. Like,
No.
you know, it's one of those things, like, it should just be like, yeah, I mean, we were wrong to make that memorial. We're gonna, we're gonna take it down. I think it was it might be a Bill Burr joke, that he said something like, in Philly they made a statue of a fake white boxer instead of putting a real black boxer there. Like, I think Cassius Clay was from Philly. You know, it's like you didn't put him there, and he's one of the greatest boxer who was a real person. Like, how is that not racism? You know. I think those changes, even if it's in the media, even if it's just for a movie, is just so important. It's important, and it's like, it's important for me, it's important for you, but it's more just important for the little kid that doesn't really know what's going on, so that he can grow up not knowing that like that there's that big of a difference between people, you know.
Yeah.
Like, that's really what it's for, because we need the kids we need kids to grow up and have a completely different mindset than what we had growing up.
It's like it all goes back to like representation, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about police for a second. Yes or no, did you have police in your school growing up?
Yep.
Yeah, same. I know, like, a lot of my more affluent friends, whether they be white or not, did not have like a heavy police presence in their school, you know?
Right.
I did from like up until high school, you know?
My school didn't have heavy police presence. Like, the middle school had a cop, and it was just this one cop that everyone knew. And then the high school, I believe, had a couple of cops, if I can remember correctly. But I do remember that the way that cop treated white kids and treated people that weren't white was so different. I mean, I think I told you last time that, like, one of the cops put me in handcuffs saying that I was not behaving the right way in class, and said, well, you know, if you want to see what your future is going to be like. And he put me in handcuffs. I wasn't under arrest. I was just down in the detention area, and he put me in handcuffs for, like, I don't know, it was like 5 minutes or something. But, like, what a fucked up thing to do to someone.
Your rights, you know?
Yeah.
Not that you would have that awareness as a kid.
Not at all. And you know what? Like, he said to me that was my future, and at the time I was like, fuck this dude. But he was not wrong. That's not the last time I got arrested by the police. You know.
The cops have definitely tried to get me a lot, but I've never been arrested.
Right.
Because I'm too slippery. Like,
but,
I didn't know not to run from the cops when I was younger. Like, if I had someone who talked to me about that stuff, I would definitely not have risked that.
Right.
Like, don't run from the cops. For any young black person watching right now, don't run from the cops.
But here's a crazy thing. You saying that you've never been arrested by the cop, what's the first thing that you think of? Is that you're lucky?
I'm so lucky. I'm almost 30 years old, and my brushes with the law have been mostly like non-aggressive, because they never caught me doing anything. But I also recognize that I have the advantage of being like a light-skinned black person.
Right.
You know?
Right. And so but that's the thing. It's like, no black person who's not been arrested should have to think to themselves, I'm lucky because it hasn't happened yet. Like, that's such a weird thing to automatically think. I think if I've said to someone who is white and said, have you ever been arrested? Like, almost most of the time they're just like, you're crazy. I've never been arrested. Like, it's almost insulting to ask that. Where when you ask a person of color, it's very like, it's like either yes most of the time, or just like, no, I haven't yet. You know, like, I think that's not the way that you
Yeah.
should have to think of this.
Definitely met some white people who have been arrested and view it as like a badge of honor, you know?
Right.
Like,
Right.
yeah, you know, I got a DUI, blah, 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 but they're also alive, you know?
They're alive. And that's the
So,
thing. Is, we just watched a person who didn't even get pulled over for being under the influence die in a Wendy's parking lot.
yeah.
And didn't even get pulled over. Like,
He
that
ran.
is crazy. He ran.
Like, that fear is real. Like, you know, like
Absolutely.
black parents everywhere tell their kids about how to deal with the cops. The chances are it will happen in their lifetime, you know?
Right.
Like, I get a strong feeling that most white people don't have to do that, you know? Unless they're poor, then they might have
Unless
to.
they're poor. And I'm excited to see things change. I mean, maybe not excited, but I'm just like, I'm hopeful to see things change. I want to see things change.
Yeah.
And I'm realistic. I don't think that, in 2 weeks' time or a month's time or a year's time that we're not going to have a lot of these issues. But I think small steps to the bigger picture is important.
Yeah, I mean, we're all trying to be on the right side of history here, you know? Like, I think that this is a very important time for this country. Like, it's a very, like, it can go either way. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. I mean,
But
Paw Patrol is off of the air.
Yeah, they canceled Paw Patrol. They canceled Cops. Aunt Jemima is not going to be a thing anymore.
And this is all great things. And it's the people that you always see arguing against this, being like, are you fucking kidding me? They canceled Paw Patrol? It's like,
There's white people who are upset about the Aunt Jemima bottle changing. Like,
who haven't fucking bought a new bottle of Aunt Jemima in like 10 years.
Exactly. It's the same fucking one you've had since the early 2000s.
You know what? I've never seen a bottle of Aunt Jemima's empty.
No, never.
Never in my life have I seen that.
I didn't. Where are all these white Aunt Jemima stands coming from? You know, like, where they love it now. You know,
no, you've never seen that. Fucking these people are buying maple syrup from like the farmers market that someone in Vermont made, and it's fucking $25 and like this much. Like. Don't go defending Aunt Jemima like you've been using it every fucking morning, like.
So I think it's a little ridiculous, but it's like racists will go that far,
Yeah, it's crazy what they'll get behind to fight. It's stupid, I honestly think that when someone is offended by something or a group of people, they're the ones who have the voice because they're offended by it. So why is anyone else chiming in and being like, well, let me tell you about what I think? It doesn't matter to you. It's not offensive to you.
Yeah, like the Aunt Jemima bottle has been like fucked for forever. It's never not been good. It's just
I think I've made jokes before that were like not jokes, but like just observations where I've been like, people have been like, Aunt Jemima thing is like kind of racist, right? And like people would laugh, and I'd be like,
"No, it is.
Hey, it is.
Right.
Like, I mean,
absolutely right.
It's just like if it always felt wrong,
It's like I just think it's like people don't believe people of color. I think like when they say that something's like that,
right? Right. They think that we're overreacting. That's always the thing, is that they're like, well, you're being too sensitive or you're overreacting. And it's like, it's not, you don't get to choose what I get to be sensitive
if I say don't touch my hair, for example, just don't touch it,
Right. Right.
I've said that like a million times in my life, probably,
And like going back to like those shows and the guys that touch your hair, like it's uncomfortable. And we know that, we know that sometimes these things, like, people don't mean these things. And I think that's the difference, is that, like, if someone doesn't mean it, and if you looked at that guy and was like, hey, man, that's just not cool, like, sorry, just, like, it's inappropriate for you to touch my hair, maybe that guy understands at that moment that he made a mistake, and that is fine. That's like, people are going to make mistakes. It's going to happen all the time. It's, you know, it's
I
how
think
people
it's
learn.
a little hard to like have the energy for that conversation every single day of your life, though. You know.
Absolutely. That's the thing, is
Um,
that, you know, it's not, you shouldn't have to have that conversation. But I feel that you shouldn't not say something when someone makes you that uncomfortable too. You know,
yeah,
because
definitely should.
it sucks. You know, there's times where like I think back where I'm just like, man, I wish I'd said something to that fucking asshole. You know.
There's another time on that same tour where I raged out because I couldn't find the person. Who
Right.
was,
And that was I was at that show.
yes, I
That
remember.
that was in Somerville, Massachusetts, on the Teenage Bottle Rocket tour. And that's the thing. There's a big difference between this guy that you're gonna tell us, and I
Yeah,
think the guy that just, you know,
absolutely. I think the first guy was just sort of ignorant of like our cultural difference, you
right,
know,
right,
like that being like a sore spot for most black people.
right,
This other person was just like
deliberate.
deliberately trying to make me pissed, you
Yeah.
know, and it
So,
worked.
so, so tell me about that show. So we're in Somerville, Massachusetts. That was like the one of the last shows of this Bottle
Yeah,
Rocket tour.
like that tour was awesome. Like I had so much fun with Bottle Rocket. They're like good guys, you know,
Yeah,
good white guys.
yeah,
But this is just one of those things where, you know, especially on tour, you never know where you're gonna be, like, and who's gonna say whatever to you. I've had people say racist things to me in Tennessee, which I'm expecting. Uh, Midwest, it happens. Boston is like the last place I expected.
right. When you're looking at the tour dates and you're like, where are we
Yeah,
going to have a sixth show and everything's going to be cool?
yeah,
You'll probably be like, man, that Boston show, the Somerville show is going to be great.
yeah. Because it's like that's almost like a hometown show for us, you
Right.
know.
You know, and like
We
all
both
your
from
friends
Boston.
are going to come out. You know, it's
Yeah,
gonna, I'll be there, obviously. It's be great.
yeah. And like the show went great, you know. Everyone played, everyone had fun, everyone chilled. And this person like shows up like at the merch table again. I don't know why the merch table. And just is like, oh yes, like I have this zine, like I don't have any money, but I'll trade you for like a record, you know, and I'm like a fan of art. I like comics, you know, I'm like,
Yeah, we try to
that's so
support
cool.
each other. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll support each other. Like we can do a trade, like so we trade and this person like immediately skedaddles, like it's just gone. And I'm like, okay, like nervous fan, it's fine. And I'm like flipping through the book and the first page is just like the most heinous, like racist, sexist, like gross. The art was bad. Like it was
Yeah.
just like all
If you
just
were
like,
if you were trying to describe this zine that he put, it was like the Golden Corral of hate.
it was like it was like south of the border and cancer. Like, and I was just so mad. I saw red. I immediately like I was doing merch. I'm like, I can't fucking do this right now. Like I'm like looking for this person. I was like feeling really mad, and I don't like
Right.
fight people, but I wanted to like confront this person and be like, this is wrong. Like I want my record back because
Yeah.
I don't even want you to touch like something that I've made, you know,
Right, right.
or
Totally.
that I've helped.
Totally.
And like the person was just gone. Like they just ghosted. Like they probably knew that I would be on some shit. Like when I read it, you know, because why would I? You know, why would that be something you should give to a person of color? I guess.
Yeah, and to me that felt so deliberate, you know,
Yeah.
it I was like, does this person like Teenage Bottle Rocket? I'm like, why are they even at this show? Because like it doesn't really align with who we think would come to a show,
Yeah, exactly.
you
Like,
know.
who
And
would do that?
after seeing your band and seeing who's in the band and like seeing the merch and stuff, like why would they want to come up and give you that? And the only thing I can think of is that it was deliberate. I think it was deliberate to upset you.
It was offensive to women, people of color, everyone, humans. It was just like,
it was so offensive.
So like edgelordy, like QAnon, like it just felt so like rhetoric that I've seen before. Just like being a dick just for the sake of being a dick.
And he left right away because he didn't want to have that confrontation.
He didn't want these hands.
No. And I remember afterwards, I think Diego like found them through like Twitter or something and like, you know, scolded them for whatever and was like, you know, you're not welcome at our shows, and what you did was like fucked up. Don't do that. And I remember that the response that person gave was like, it wasn't even sorry. They were just like, yeah, you can share this, you know, with everyone so that they can see like how upset you are, because like that's what they wanted. They wanted the reaction, you know. They
want more people. They're just like trying to use our notoriety to shine a light on their cancerous, like, shitty comic. Like, I cannot like emphasize how shitty this comic was. It was just like really bad.
I mean, the subject matter was terrible, but like also those drawings were like
exactly. They were just like, it was like, even if the comic was somehow good, it was still bad, you know.
Right. And I mean, I'm not someone who reads comics, but like you're big into anime, so I think you know comics.
I read comics all day and night. Instead of reading that, read all of the Coheed and Cambria like comics. Like start today. They're awesome. But I think eventually we all have to like kind of grow up a little, and like I guess when it came to like searching for bands that like represented my ideals, like at that time, I couldn't really like find what I was looking for. Like I didn't see a band that was like, oh, I want a band that sounds like indie punk, like Strokes or something with people of color in it, you know?
Right. So you make that band.
Yeah. So you be like, let's do that instead of just trying to look for it. You know?
Yeah. I mean, Fishbone is one of my favorite bands. Having a band that had a T-shirt that said "fuck racism" and being extremely talented, I looked up to that band so much. But I wasn't writing music like Fishbone. I couldn't. It was, you know, I'm not as talented as any one of those dudes to fucking play what they can. I wanted to do something else, and you know, I didn't find what I was doing. That there was many people of color doing what I was doing, you know. I'm glad I'm doing it now.
I was surrounded by white people, and you're like, how did I get
here? And you know, and like here I am fucking years later finding out that the woe and bro him is not for me. I thought I was part of the woe.
Nah.
I'm not, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, like, we can make the woe and bro him for us, you know.
It's true. We can be the woe that we want to be.
Yeah. Exactly.
Shannon, thank you for doing this episode again.
Of course, I will do this episode a third time if you need it.
You won't need to do this episode a third time, but if you know, we can always talk more anytime for sure.
Of course, you know, I love the biz.
The biz. I hope the biz has taught you a lot.
I feel like the number one thing the biz has taught me is do not roll up your shirts.
Don't roll up your shirts.
It doesn't really work that well.
Doesn't save any room. You look like a joke.
Yeah.
I don't want people to look like a joke.
People are gonna think we're Beverly Crusher. I know Cazell still does that.
He does. He admitted it to me. That's a great place to end, so I'm gonna stop recording.
Perfect.